Two Men in a Bible here. I'm Jeff.
Are you really?
I thought I was.
I'm just
Let me
checking.
check. 'Cause
Yeah.
I have my birth certificate
Yeah.
here. Yeah, I'm Jeff.
I'm Joel.
Who are you?
I'm Joel.
Joel who?
Joel Hilden, believe it or not, from Park River, North Dakota.
So you're one of the guys. So
I was one of the three guys from North Dakota. Yes,
From
I
Park
was.
River.
Yeah,
now you're one of the men.
yeah. Now one
You
of
went from guy to men.
Yes, yes.
Well,
And
we're
we
two
have
men.
we even have a Bible with us.
Yeah, each of us have a Bible. So we're two men and two Bibles?
Two Bibles. We are two men in a Bible, and we have a guest with us today.
Yeah, you guys are in for it because we are going to talk about something that is probably, well, Joel and I would agree, I think, for sure in the top 10, if not
Top one.
top one, maybe,
Yeah.
issues that we could possibly talk about. And this issue is abortion, and it's emotional. It's spiritual.
It's actually the topic is murder.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it really is.
That's
And I think it's time Christians start calling it what it is.
Right.
You know, we keep using this word abortion because it's a nice, easy word to use, and we think that it's not quite as bad as murder, but it is murder.
Well, I think we're going to talk about that, kind of where is the pro-life movement. And Amber has done a lot of work, and she's still doing a lot of work, and she has a lot of work cut out for her. But before we talk about what she's doing, Joel is going to read a Bible verse.
I think we need to understand, number one, Romans chapter 1 doesn't directly speak to abortion or murder as such, but it does if you really look at it closely.
In a broad sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with this thought coming from Romans 1:18. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men. You ready for this, folks? Who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. And there's an awful lot of suppressing of the truth lately.
Yeah.
I mean, we're even finding, the different social media, is that what they're called? I don't even know what they're called. The different places we're being censored from telling the truth nowadays.
Right. Yeah.
And it's really sad. But then we move on to verse 21, because although they knew God, they did not glorify God as God, nor were they thankful to him, but they became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened.
Yeah.
We find that here's a fact. There's no such thing as an atheist. There are people out there that claim to be atheists, but there's no such thing as an atheist. And God makes it very clear there's no such thing as an atheist in this chapter. And he's making that clear by stating that people are suppressing the truth because God has put it in the heart of every human being, the knowledge of himself. In fact, it says that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The knowledge of God is in every person. And so all they're really trying to do as claiming to be atheists is they're suppressing the truth that's right inside of them. Well, then verse 28, and even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, here it is, God gave them over to a debased mind to do those things which were not fitting. And it just keeps getting worse. And
So, thank you, Joel. So as we move into our topic of abortion, a lot of our listeners right now, which thank you, Jason, for getting us out to Devil's Lake and practically Bismarck and Stanley and all of those of you in Canada. A lot of you listening to this Christian radio station probably have had many discussions about abortion already. But this discussion today very possibly might be a discussion about abortion that you maybe haven't had yet. And so that's why we have Amber Vibetto here. She has been a champion for abortion, like many of you listening out there. But we're talking about abortion in kind of a new way. I don't know how the best to say it. Maybe in a deeper way. In a way that both Joel and I support. And I don't want to give it away, so I'm going to turn this over to Amber right away. Hey, that was pretty poetic, huh? Where are we now with the pro-life movement, Amber, and kind of where are we going? And what's your passion and your cause and your fight all about right now?
Well, thanks for having me on again. So I think it's really important that we take stock of where we are right now in the pro-life movement. And unfortunately, it's not very good, but I think it's so important that we have clarity so that we know how to move forward. I mean, we look at our culture right now. Most people are pro-choice. Even a lot of Christians believe that abortion should be available up to a certain point. So we have a mostly pro-choice culture at this point. We have lost politically. The RNC, the Republican National Convention, has removed their pro-life platform in essence. A lot of top Republican politicians are moving away from the issue. They're compromising. And we have 0 abortion bans in the United States, even though, contrary to popular belief, women retain the right to kill their unborn children in all 50 states. And most importantly, and this is really unfortunate, but we have more abortions taking place now than when Roe still stood. So we're losing. And I would say that we have lost. We have lost on this issue as we currently stand. And I think it's really important to really understand the reason why. Why have we lost on this issue? Some people believe that, they look at, we've tried to do this incrementally, and that's why we failed. But I think the real issue is not incrementalism versus immediatism. It is justice versus injustice. So the pro-life establishment, most people don't know this, but the pro-life establishment stands hand in hand with the pro-choice establishment, in that they both believe that women should retain the legal right to have an abortion.
Okay, repeat that again and go slow, because I want to make sure that people catch that. What you just said is really at the heart of what makes this conversation a little bit different than the thousands of conversations that pro-lifers have had and Christians have had. So what did you just say about this?
Yes. So the pro-life establishment and the pro-abortion activists both agree on a fundamental point, that women should retain the legal right to have an abortion.
So both pro-life and pro-choice believe that women should have the legal right to have an abortion without accountability.
Yes. So every piece of pro-life legislation that has been passed, and there may be like 26 states or something that supposedly have an abortion ban. In all of those states, including our own, women are exempted. So women retain the legal right. So it's illegal for everyone else to kill an unborn child. But the woman, the pregnant mother, retains that right.
Gotcha. You hear the difference of that, folks? So, and we're not talking...
Explain why, though. I mean, I think the people need to understand why you're saying what you're saying, because right now they're rebelling against what you're saying.
Yes.
I would suggest.
Yes.
And so tell them why.
Well, there's 2 different reasons why. Of course, the pro-choice, pro-abortion activists, they deny that, they deny the humanity of the preborn. And so it's all about a woman's right to choose. The reason why the pro-life establishment fights for the woman's right to have an abortion is because they view her as a victim of abortion.
Right.
And so they don't want to criminalize women. They don't want to punish women for having an abortion. Those are their words. And so there are vastly different reasons why they both fight for a woman's right. But in essence, in reality and practicality, it's the same result. And so that is why we still have abortion in all 50 states. And that is why our movement has failed, because we don't fight for equal justice under the law for the unborn.
The justice should be for the unborn as well as for the mother. So, yeah.
Right.
Well, and by equal justice, there are you saying if a baby outside the womb has justice in terms of that baby's mother cannot murder that baby, that 1-year-old, why is she suddenly a victim when it comes to the baby being inside the womb. So that's what you mean by equal justice, basically. right?
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for
Right.
clarifying,
Yeah.
because I was
Yeah.
wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the mother, the pregnant mother, we have the pro-life establishment in essence saying that a certain class of humans, pregnant mothers, should have the legal right to kill another class of humans with immunity, with impunity. And so if we're going to say as a pro-life movement that the unborn have inherent worth and dignity and are just as precious as the 2-year-old or as the 80-year-old, then how can we say then that we're going to give this class of people a right to kill them?
Wow. So that's where they really are no better than the pro-choice position. Their reasoning might be different, but the effect is, I mean, it begs the question, how far have we really come, and where would we be had they
if we're allowing
different?
if we're allowing the mother to have an abortion and no consequence for her, I mean, we're aiding and abetting that murder as well as a nation,
Well, yeah. So
as a group of people.
So you got Joel and I convinced, but have you had opportunity to actually engage in some level of conversation with pro-lifers? I'm thinking Right to Life. I'm thinking right here in North Dakota, there are significant Christian groups that oppose what you're saying. Do they just kind of ignore you, or are they willing to engage in a conversation about
Well,
that?
I've been having some great conversations
Good.
with people, and people are changing their minds. But I think for a lot of people who are against equal protection, they can't get over the point that women are victims of abortion.
So how do we get them past that, do you
Well,
think?
one thing that I would say is just, when we make a decision that harms us and that we regret, that doesn't necessarily make us victims of our choice, right? And then I go back to, we always have to start with God's word as our foundation for why we push for any kind of policy, right? Everyone has a worldview. Everyone pushes their worldview into policy.
Right.
So what does our worldview say? Well, we're Christians, so we go to God's word. What does God's word say about justice? What does he say about partiality? What does he say about unequal weights and measures? And so when we are trying to do something good that we think God should bless, then why are we trying to go around God's word? Are we trying to out compassion him because he's not compassionate enough, or
Interesting.
or are we saying that
He's not compassionate enough for the woman, you're
right,
saying?
or compassion, yeah, or is his justice a little bit too harsh? Is
sure.
his justice going to cause unintended consequences that we're not going to like? We can get into all sorts of what if scenarios, but the bottom line is that we have to fight for what is right, what is true, what is just, what is good, not based on culture and our polls. We have to fight for what is right.
Yeah, so you can see where this way of talking about abortion is very different, and I still wonder, and this is probably an impossible question to answer, but if the whole pro-life movement since 1973 had thought this way, you do have to wonder, would have abortion really ended a long time ago? And that's not to say that they were somehow nefariously, we're not accusing them of, oh, you're just in it for the money or you're whatever.
No, I don't think so.
There's honest mistakes that were made, and I think we have to face those. That maybe this is just, like you opened with, we need to reevaluate this. Okay, where are we at? Especially, what a great time to reevaluate when one of the ultimate goals that we've had for 50 years has been to overturn Roe v. Wade.
And
that
now it happened. Yep.
And now here we are. So, okay, what about the next chapter now? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and we've kind of allowed the pro-choice movement to control the conversation because, of course, the pro-choicers are going to want to focus on the woman because it's not easy to defend killing babies and ripping them apart in the womb.
Right.
That's an awkward conversation. So of course they're going to want to focus on women's rights and how this affects women. And I think a mistake that the pro-life movement has made is we have responded to that. And
In
we're
kind.
trying to out-compassion them and say, "Oh, but we love women more. We're the ones who truly care about women," which is actually true. We are the ones who actually love women and care for them, and we prove that in all sorts of ways. But we have become so focused on our own image. We don't want to be looked at as women haters. That's become our
Do you
main
think
message.
that's part of what's going on here is the pro-life group feels that you're more of a woman hater because you want a woman to receive justice, or I mean justice as in they should pay for their crime.
Yeah.
That seems like
Well, I mean, you certainly hear it. So when Amber brought that resolution to the Republican convention of the North Dakota Republican Convention, it failed.
yes,
And you think about it, out of 15 resolutions, that was the only one that failed.
right.
It was called equal protection, I think, for the unborn. Here at the Republican convention, which this year in particular was full of very conservative,
Yeah.
patriot, liberty-minded people. But we had people like, God bless them in many ways, but sorry, Scott Hennon, you were there handing out handouts. This is a major radio guy handing out handouts against this measure, and he's a strong Catholic. I'm sure he's bought into the right to life rhetoric. But
the people that opposed her the most were the pro-life people.
yeah,
Yeah,
well, that's
and on
all
a national level too.
Yeah,
that's the only people at the convention that were opposing her.
yeah.
And I can't remember where I was leading with that, but anyway, we'll get back to it. Wow. So
So how do we convince the people of the pro-life movement? Because they're the people we probably need to start with. maybe I'm wrong.
I'm sorry, remember what I was going to say. So what I heard at the convention from the people that I talked to was, I don't want women being thrown in jail. So as so often happens is, back to what, about hating women, but really how that got communicated was, what do you want to throw women in prison now? I mean, as if we're just drooling to say, yeah, I want women to go to prison. Well, wait a minute here.
That's not what we were after.
First of all, that's not even reality.
Yep.
So they get these unrealistic, extreme buzz phrases that they throw in there. And I think that's what tilts people because, everybody's thinking of their wife, their mother, their sister, their daughter. What if they had an abortion? Oh, yeah, I wouldn't want her going to prison. And of course, they think of the worst extremes, maybe prison for life because we're calling it murder and something like that.
No, it's not about punishing women at all.
No.
It's about equal protection under the law. So it's very simple. It's a very simple concept. It's the same laws that protect you and me will protect the unborn.
Yeah.
So do we believe that they're the same, as us, or do we not?
I also think this would deter a lot of abortions.
Great
would.
question. What do you think about that, Amber?
Well, I have talked to women who have had abortions, and they say that if a law had been in place, it would have prevented them from making the biggest mistake of their lives. And so
Interesting. Why
why do we as a pro-life movement want to, like we were talking earlier before the show started, God's boundaries are compassionate. They are there to prevent us from harming ourselves. He
Right.
knows best. So I've heard women say, if that had been in place, it would have stopped me. So why, as a pro-life movement, would we want to give that option, leave that option open for women so that they can murder their child and then suffer the repercussions for their actions? Because it does destroy women. It, spiritually, physically, sometimes it's a terrible thing. Women do suffer. And then the pro-life movement is saying, well, we'll be there for you
Right.
on the other end of
Sure.
it.
Yeah, and that's why the deterrence message, I think that's what we need to get out there.
Yeah.
Is that it will deter women from, I think to me, it sounds like two things. We got to let them know there are women who, by their own testimony, would say, had it been
Murder.
murder for me, if, at some level, not throw in prison for life, but it would have made a difference in my decision. And then also, I think we need to get out the message that, just that there are different degrees of being accountable. So we have to get people away from locking themselves into this fearful thing that their daughter or their niece or their neighbor that they know might actually end up in prison someday. When we don't look at regular murder that way, or killings. I mean, there's involuntary manslaughter, and then there's the scale goes all the way up to misdemeanors and class A, class AA felony.
Right.
So we're not saying that. In fact, I should ask you this question, Amber. If you were to envision what a law could look like, an equal protection law, what would that accountability maybe look like? Help people understand, if you're going to hold women accountable, what might that look like?
Yeah.
Ideally.
Well, and I wouldn't even, I guess, frame it, hold women accountable. I would just say that the unborn are protected under the same laws. So that means that you would have to find a prosecutor who is willing to take on a certain case. If we had a bill of equal protection, if we had a law passed, well, we wouldn't have a clinic, which we don't have a clinic now, which is amazing. So what you're left with is these self-managed abortions that women are performing at home. And that's going to be extremely hard to prosecute. It's going to be extremely hard to really prove that a woman took a pill. So the goal isn't to put all these women in prison. That's not the goal. The goal is to establish justice within our law so that it prevents abortion, and that it teaches our culture that it's wrong to kill.
Okay, yeah, so that's a very different approach. I appreciate your clarifying that, because a lot of people have and will be saying, well, how are you going to figure out whether they took a pill or not? I mean, what are you going to do? Run in, have people go into their homes? But no, that's not even the point.
That's
even
not
if
the
it's
point.
only a few, the point is now we have a law that is just, and the law teaches. So if we don't catch all the women, or even most of them, that's not the main point.
We need just laws, and we need constitutional laws. Our pro-life legislation is not constitutional because we're depriving certain lives of their lives, certain humans of their lives. So it's not constitutional. It's not biblical. So our legislation needs to reflect our biblical worldview, and it needs to reflect
It
the
actually needs to
constitutionality.
reflect the Bill of Rights. I
Yes.
mean, right from the beginning. I mean, it's for life.
I'm sitting here right now. I'm thinking, I'm both hopeful and a little daunted. Is that a word? Daunted. But on one hand, if this can get out, which I believe it will, that's the hope. That's the hope right there. But the daunting part is, this is a hard message to get out. It's not something you can just throw on a 30-second ad. I mean, this really does
Or a 25-minute
require
conversation.
I know, even today, but I mean, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
We're just starting.
so it's going to take a lot of conversation. But I think what I envision, my little prophetic vision here, right? We talked about that, is that there may be a snowball effect ahead of us once it starts to catch on, and maybe be a little bit more okay for people to think this way, because that's the first step.
In fairness here,
Oh, we're out of time.
we are out of time.
We
so
are.
that means we need to go to another show.
Yeah, we're going to go to show 2, guys. Okay, you've been listening to 2 Men in Bible. Thanks. See you next time.